Are you totally different when it comes to sex and copulation? Have you judged yourself out of receiving pleasure? Have you judged yourself into receiving pleasure in certain ways and excluded other ways? Would you like to know more about what else is possible with bodies? Would you like to create confidence in the bedroom and beyond? How has your sex life or lack of it affected other areas of your life? Everyone has the potency to be a sexual superhero. Get ready to listen, sense, and play with the sexualness that is you. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, pleasure diva and body whisperer, Milica Jelenic.
Good evening, pleasure seekers. Welcome to The Pleasure Zone. It's another fantastic day in my world. I hope it is in yours, too. Is what? Today's Pleasure Zone Day, and that means that there's fun in the world. Even when there's misery, there's at least this hour of fun. If you happen to find yourself down the tunnel of love called Inspired Choices Network and you must show called The Pleasure Zone, you have found the Pleasure Zone. There's other ways to find pleasure zones, but they usually involve hands down pants. That works too. So the other love tunnel of Inspired Choices Network, or the other love tunnel in your pants. Either way, you found the pleasure zone. And tonight we're actually going to talk about the fear of all that because, why not? You can have a fear of intimacy. There's actually like an amazing amount of phobias related to intimacy, eroticism, sex, kissing even. And I like these phobias come from like Greek words, and the one and very few Greek words that I knew from going to Greece a few times were kind of like, there was some like inviting me out on date phrases, but then there's also, I think I'm going to say this right, and if I'm bashing a Greek language, I apologize, but I believe it was like phile me pola, which means kiss me a lot. So I remember the word for kisses, and the fear of kissing is actually like philophobia, which I like finding weird and unusual words, so philophobia. But if you like it a lot, it's phile me pola, so, or something to that effect. And who knows, maybe the guy didn't actually say kiss me a lot. Maybe he said kiss my crotch. I don't know, because I was in Greece, and I don't speak Greek, and I just went along for the ride, so it was good. And that's what you get when you're traveling in your 20s. So, we're going to talk, though, about erotophobia and genophobia and all things that have to do with the phobia of erotism, of bodies, of sexuality, of all the things that I have, like, the opposite of. And so I got to find out, like, it's instead of a phobia, you actually kind of almost have, like, a fetish, and a fetish for bodies in general. You have a body? Woo! Fetish. Or phobia, fear, right? So there are so many fears related to bodies, and I'm just going to name a few. Like the genophobia, which is also known as coitophobia, which is, of course, coitus being sex. So it's the fear of sexual intercourse. And actually many people with genophobia are able to begin romantic relationships, and they can enjoy things like kissing and cuddling, but they're very, very afraid to show any more affection, like even oral sex would be off the table, intercourse of kind would be off the table. So, if you are in a relationship and you're like, why doesn't this person move forward? They could actually have a fear. They could actually have a phobia. And there's a very big difference between feeling a little put off by something and having a full-blown phobia. You know what, maybe let's talk about that a little bit, and I'll get into some other phobias, just so you're not sitting here judging the poop out of yourself as I'm going to talk about some of the phobias and you start thinking you're identifying with them. Because to become true phobias, you have to have some pretty severe reactions. And for some phobias, people will actually stop breathing. They'll get heart palpitations. It's almost like anxiety attacks. And they could even have like a sense of like in their body, like frozen in fear. So that would be much more of a reaction that would occur in somebody who has like a true phobia, rather than you're afraid of it or you just dislike it. And you can dislike something without having it be a phobia. So get that kind of situation. the kind of bonus about phobias is there's been a lot of research for many decades, especially with cognitive behavioral therapists over the last 40, 50 or more years. There's been a lot of different approaches that are pretty effective in changing phobias. So that's the bonus. I also am aware of a lot of alternative type of things that can be used to kind of start to break free from, different thought patterns. So exposure therapy is another one, which is usually done by somebody who's actually studied psychology as a psychologist or as a psychiatrist, and they would do exposure therapy. So they have training in this. You could try and do exposure therapy yourself, and for something like a phobia, it would be to actually put yourself in the situation of being exposed to either the possibility of having sex or to expose yourself to sexual thoughts. I'm not sure of the extent that maybe pornography would work for that, actually watch that, but exposure therapy, because people are trained in it, I do think that there's some value in the training and that they have a kind of a concept of how to work with that. So if that's something that you have, if you have phobia of any kind, definitely exposure therapy is one of the ones that I've seen some pretty great results with. And not that I've performed exposure therapy with anybody, but I've seen studies done. So when it comes to something like that, there's a lot of assistance out there available, and most of it does have to do with either the exposure to it, retraining your brain, getting your brain to a place where it's all in your mind, right? So it sends a signal to your body for your body to have fear, whether it's found anything realistic or not. There can be a fear that and the thing about phobias is they can be so complex that you have so much fear and it's not founded in anything that is a threat to you imminently, but it's actually completely in your mind is reacting like it's death coming its way. So the kind of phobia would be almost like with erotophobia would be that somebody approaches you for say coitus, for example, and all of a sudden your body goes into contractions, heart palpitations, breathing changes, all of these things start to occur, and your body just basically freezes. Your body is either going to go into two places. It's going to go into either the fight or the flight mode. Sometimes with flight mode, what occurs is people don't actually run. They just kind of stay frozen, and that's a bit of flight without body movement. It's just flight of your cognitive awareness kind of energetically. It looks like people just leaving their body. So that's one of the things that occurs. So like most phobias, most phobias are founded in something at some point in your life that you've actually, at some point in your life, you've either had a trauma of some kind related to that particular thing. So, for example, like maybe arachnophobia, which is the fear of spiders. You might have been exposed to spiders in this life or another in a way that actually had your body react, so that you have, fears that bring up heart palpitations and like the feeling of freezing up or not being able to actually acknowledge, like, is this a safe environment or is this not a safe environment? So when you go into the fight or flight, or your body's constantly in that fight or flight mode, there isn't like a lot of room for any pragmatic thinking. Like, you just kind of go into crazy mind, and you stop being able to actually look at the situation and figure out, is this real? Is this not real? What's really going on here? It could be a tiny, tiny little baby spider, or it could be even a toy spider. And I have a friend who has arachnophobia, and she's been doing exposure therapy for herself by using a toy spider, and she'll just like move it around her house once in a while, or get the person she's living with, move it around the house so that she'll come upon it and just let her body kind of get used to being around spiders. Her exposure therapy that she's doing is actually using a toy spider So here's my thought on that. So if you have a fear of say, sexual intimacy, or there's even like just fear of genitals in general, you could actually have, for example, dildos lying around, so that, or pictures of genitals lying around, so that you could be exposed to it, and then get your body used to it, look at it, go, whoa, is that trying to have sex with me right now? No, it's not. It's a picture. Okay. Deep breath in for 4, breathe out for 8. Evaluate your situation around. Is there an imminent threat going on? If there's no imminent threat, take another deep breath in, out. Start to change your breathing patterns so that you're not holding your breath and you're not putting your body into shock. Right? So a lot of those like really simple breathing techniques, like breathing in for 4, breathing out for 8, are highly effective. There's actually one of our past hosts, his name was Dr. Ron Janer. He had really great episodes on his show called Grizzly Bears and 2-Year-Olds, and he talked a lot about the effects of things like irrational fears and how they affect the physiology of our body, from the amygdala sending a signal to the thyroid sending a signal to your adrenals, putting you in overdrive, and then basically if your body doesn't relax, it can't get a new reaction. It can't heal and it can't change what's going on. So having that breath in, breath out, is super, super highly effective. And there's more steps to that you can add that. But that is one way to really start, in a really simple way, to start to go from a place of having a phobia to start to be able to get that you have control over this phobia. You're actually creating it and you can change it. So breathing in, breathing out, evaluate the situation. So, for example, with erotophobia, it's like, okay, you're in a situation, somebody's touching you, caressing you, the kissing might be fine, and it's going to that next step. So one thing you could do if you're in that situation is just excuse yourself. Oh, just a second, I need to go to the bathroom. So you go to the bathroom, and you take your deep breath in for 4, and your breath out for 8. I'm breathing into the phone so you can really get the effect of the breath out. And you do that a few times until you start to notice that your adrenaline overload starts to calm down, your body, the palpitations, start to subside, your body starts to feel a little bit calmer and calmer. And so do that. And if you need to be in there for 5 or 10 minutes, they think you've had diarrhea or are constipated, hey, you have diarrhea or are constipated. Run the water to make it sound like you've washed up real good and you're ready for play, and approach again, right? And see how that goes. Now that you've breathed and evaluated, the thing is, if you think all sexual situations are dangerous, you'll be avoiding them forever. So another thing to ask is, do you actually desire having the intimacy that comes with sexual intercourse or sexual intimacy of any kind? Now, if you don't require to change it. But if you actually desire it, then guess what? You have a choice. And this breathing technique is one that's really, really simple, that you can start on your own before you go off and find your cognitive behavioral therapist. You do your exposure therapy. So those are some, that one, like breathe technique is really, really simple and really easy for anybody to do and totally free. And it's one that I think, you can use for a lot of situations. So, and it's something that you can do even with your thoughts. So even if you're not in the situation and the thought arises, like, oh, I might go on a date tonight. What's going to happen? I might have sex. You have all these thoughts going through your brain. You can check what's going on. Deep breath in, deep breath out, and just check your environment. Is there an imminent threat? Oh, there isn't. Okay, cool. But we will talk about, we are going to end up breaking a few seconds, but when we will be talking about some of the things that, through research people have discovered are some of the causes, some of the most obvious causes of erotophobia, and some of the things that, definitely some of the causes are, when you hear them, are pretty self-evident to why maybe the breathing and evaluating a situation to go, is this occurring now? Now, the value to me in knowing is this occurring now is because you might get a yes. This is actually something I'm aware of. The person I'm with actually is going to be violent or something, or be encountering a situation. So this is to develop your awareness, not to negate it. It's to actually get you to be clear on what you are aware of, and when you truly are aware of a threat, rather than thinking everything is a threat, right? So with the phobia, it's like often we think everything related to the phobia is a threat, where sometimes there's validity in it. Like spiders, there can be some spiders that can kill us, so it's good to be aware of what spiders are dangerous and what aren't. And it's not that you have to be afraid of the spiders, you can just not go near them, right? So with erotophobia, it's not that you have to be afraid of all people for sex. Maybe there are people that you'd like to avoid having sex with, and you get to have awareness of that, right? So just wanted to mention that while I had that thought. So I just want to remind you guys that you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we're now streaming to iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, and like you name it, we are probably on it. It's so exciting, and actually this is so exciting that I just had to say it. So I'm just so excited to let you guys know we are on iHeartRadio now. Woohoo! And we are going to head off to a commercial break, and I'll be chatting more about this after the commercial break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the awesome, most fun show of The Pleasure Zone. And because you're listening, you're considered a pleasure seeker. That's your new title, pleasure seeker. So if you need buttons, let me know. Maybe I should make buttons, pleasure seeker buttons. That'd be fun. So tonight's topic is erotophobia, which is the fear of intimacy, sexual intimacy in particular, because the fear of intimacy itself is not always related to sex. And sometimes the fear of intimacy is just like serious. It's actually quite good. It's not necessarily to the level of phobia in a lot of people, but a sort of lower level fear of intimacy. We'll have a lot of people just choose not to be in relationships, never really talk deeply in relationship, never be connected closely or emotionally closely with anyone. And a lot of that would come from abandonment or fear of abandonment. And really what I'm aware of with abandonment after spending many years dealing with my so-called abandonment issues is truly what I was aware of, and what I'm aware of now is I truly actually fear of abandoning myself and not having my own back, where I had like everybody else's back. And it was amazing. I spent so many years in therapy dealing with my so-called fear of abandonment. That was actually my fear of abandoning me, not necessarily a fear of other people abandoning me. Even though in my life I, had abandonment. I guess people left me, friends left, relationships left, parents left, that sort of thing. But it was more that I was afraid that I would actually abandon my own knowing. When it came down to it, it's like I always knew, and somewhere even when I was little, when my parents got divorced, I had a sneaking suspicion that they were going to separate, but nobody talked about it. So there was this giant elephant in the room, and I was like, there's an elephant in the room. And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, but there's an elephant in the room. So negating my awareness was, and then I was like, okay, they're right, they're big, I'm wrong. And I spent a lot of time negating my awareness because people reassured me continually that, what I was aware of wasn't accurate, but it was, so there you go. And sometimes there was like nuances, right? So I could be aware of a change or something, and it was like, that means you don't love me, but it was actually more like, oh, wait a minute, that just means they're changing something, that I couldn't understand it. I couldn't figure it out in my brain. I couldn't figure out all the stuff I knew and put words to it. So sometimes I still have that. Just don't have the words for it, but I have this massive energy, and I just throw it at you so you get the energy of it. So there's a few other categories in here, especially related to sex and intimacy, that I'll just mention a few more of. So another one is erotophobia, which is the fear of sexual perversion. Now, this one, I don't know that I had it at the level of phobia either, but I did have a keen awareness that whatever it was, I did not want to turn out to be a sexual pervert. I acted up with someone I was in a class for consciousness one day, and I brought it up to the person facilitating, and it was actually, I think, there's quite a few people who thanked for my awareness on that after, because I had such a deep fear that I was going to mess up people in my life. If, I was a nanny for a number of years, and I thought, oh God, whatever I do not try and have for example, I would cuddle some of the kids to sleep. They would ask me to cuddle them, and so I would cuddle them to sleep, and I was so aware that I didn't want to put any weird stuff in their universe that it ended up putting weird stuff in their universe, even though it was energetic, and it was you'd think of, oh, okay, you don't want to make sure whatever I do, don't put my hand on the wrong part of that body, you don't want to accidentally be touching a kid where you shouldn't be because you're sleeping and your hand moves or something. So I was so aware of it that it was freaking me out, and I'm pretty sure that on some level, they picked it up because it was just really weird. And meanwhile, if I was just lying there, just hanging out, which now I do with my girl all the time, I don't have so much of a, oh my God, what if I'm a pervert? What if I just did something really weird? So now, paraphobia is the fear of sexual perversions, but it is really complicated because sometimes, like me, I was more afraid of being a pervert myself, while others actually have a fear of the perversions or fear of others' perversions, whatever that means, right? What is the pervert to begin with? So a lot of people, though, can have normal relationships when they have paraphobia, as long as it fits within their personal moral code. So it doesn't really ruin their life. It makes it a little complicated, right? So it's also the fear of being a pervert. You can still have a relationship, but there's this undercurrent thought that constantly you're like, oh my God, what if I'm a pervert? What if I'm a pervert? Looked at an animal, the animal got turned on. That make me a pervert for noticing that? Yeah, man, I've had some weird thoughts like that in my life. Wow, if you have, welcome to my world. And then you start to be like, wow, maybe I'm not a pervert. Maybe I am a pervert. But then at some point, you're just not afraid of it, and you're just like, right, so if I am, what am I going to do about it? And if I'm not, cool, I'm not. What are you going to do about it? So strange and interesting confessions on the pleasure zone tonight. I usually have at least one or two strange confessions on the pleasure zone. I think this is I I wasn't raised Catholic, but I think for me this is like going into confessional. So you have another phobia coming right up for you. It's called haphophobia, spelled Haphphobia. And I had to spell it because it's such a strange word, haphophobia. It's also known as erotophobia. It's the fear of being touched often, and it affects all relationships, not just romantic ones. Some people actually completely recoil from even passing contact by a relative. They just like, bleh, grossed. And that's, I get that. And it's really funny. So try not to go into your head too much looking for where you are any of these, because I'm the first person to go, oh my God, I have a fear of intimacy. Oh my God, I have paraphobia. Oh my God, I have all these issues. I'm a real mess. No, the phobia has to be pretty extreme to the point where you cannot breathe. Basically, you feel like you're dying. So that's more like anxiety. But so it's like not being able to breathe, heart palpitations, all of this stuff. So yeah, if it's just running in your brain, you're judging the crap out of yourself. That's judging the crap out of yourself. So acknowledge that. I can do that. Sometimes I'm professional, judge the crap myself kind of person. So. Yeah, so which one? I've got a few more that I found that I like bringing up to the table. So gymnophobia or gymnophobia, spelled like gym, G-Y-M-nophobia, is the fear of nudity. And that can be complex too, because sometimes it's just like nudity in public. Sometimes it's like nudity around certain people. And it's also, there's also usually body issues involved, feelings of inadequacy involved. But sometimes people have that fear of nudity even when they're alone, and they just want to be naked by themselves because they're like, oh no, this is awful, it's weird. And, so there's so many different causes for these things too. So it's crazy. And it looks like I'm going to have to talk about causes in the next segment. Holy God, this is a quick running show tonight. So, yeah, so the gymnophobia, I think there is quite a few ways that can occur that maybe you weren't even writing about. So, for example, you might have like a fear. There might be certain people you're afraid to be around, naked around. Maybe you're afraid to be naked around men. Maybe you're afraid to be naked around women. I, for example, do not like being around people I know. I am fine with being perfectly naked around total strangers. I know that takes me a lot of effort to be, sounds backwards, But if I was a stripper, I'd definitely move to a town where I knew absolutely nobody, and then I'd be okay. So, but being naked around people I know, that's a tough one for me. And that's something that's like, I've got to breathe in and breathe out to pull that off. It's weird, but true. I'm okay with being naked around my husband and daughter, but I'm not good with being naked around my mother or my cousins or my friends. Nope, good with it. So there, another true and interesting fact about me. A little bit phobic on the side of just people that I know, but strange or good. So if you ever want to see me naked, you can only meet me once. Ask me to get naked, and then we're good. If I know you, I'm probably not going to do it. Let's face it. So another fear that is, I mentioned it earlier, the philemophobia, philemophobia, the fear of kissing. Some people just have a fear of that because it's more about a breast thing, and they're more on the level of germophobes rather than kissing, but it has more to do with the germs and stuff like that. So, and these things can compile and jump onto each other and piggyback each other. So germs and disease and kissing and all that jazz, and why can't we just have fun, damn it? So, and we can. Breathe in for 4, out for 8. And I want to remind you guys of that as you are listening to the Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network and at radio, woohoo! And we are going to be right back after this commercial break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What would you say if I told you that you could change your life in only 1 hour and all while lying down relaxing? Thousands of people all over the world have. What am I talking about? It's called Access Consciousness, the bars. The bars is an energetic body process that contains 32 different points on your head that when run assist you in releasing decisions about any area of your life that you have made solid and as a result cannot change. The bars is the first class in Access Consciousness, a dynamic set of tools and information designed to transform any area of your life. When you have a bars session, the worst that can happen is you feel like you had a fantastic massage. The best thing that can happen is your whole life could change. Go to accessconsciousness.com today to find a facilitator to schedule a private session or to find a bars class in your area. Are you willing to give yourself an hour to change your life?
This is the Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, 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 sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. And we are talking about erotophobia today, the fear of sexual intimacy. I think it's a pretty cool and amazing topic. I've just been picking some really random topics lately that seem to all be under the umbrella of mental health in different ways. And I think it's fascinating how many different ways we will actually create. We'll just say that we create them. As human beings, we've created these things like phobias. We create these things in order to not have pleasure, which fascinates me. Here we are. We're these bodies that are amazing. We can do with our bodies, how we move, how we create other bodies. Like, it's just fascinating. And even the weird things we can grow on, like cysts and tumors, like, we're fascinating bodies. And it's so weird to me that we could, and we have all these senses as well, right? These senses so that we can actually experience pleasure, have a sensation of what pleasure feel like. And what do? We create a million ways not to have it because we're brilliant. Let's make sure that we can create at least a million ways to refuse receiving pleasure. And erotophobia is just another one of those ways that we're brilliant and have chosen to not receive pleasure. So if you're really cute, and I'm really cute, and we're all really cute, and we've done things in our lives and chosen things in our lives where we've actually chosen pain and fear over pleasure, joy, cool. Acknowledge it, choose something different, move along, and create something totally different with your life. Remember, breathe in, breathe out, now make a new choice. So what are some causes of these wild and mysterious phobias? Phobias and those are pretty, they've been studied by many, many different, areas of psychology. So they have all kinds of reasoning behind people's fears, through talking to people and people evaluate their own thoughts, like, why am I afraid of that? Why am I afraid of a spider? Why am I afraid of sex? A lot of the questions where we ask things like whys, which often make you judge yourself, which when we judge ourselves, we can label ourselves. And here we go, we've got a label, erotophobia. So we've when we look at a lot of these things, a lot of them have, and it's actually completely impossible to pinpoint a specific cause for the name erotophobia, because all the people who would identify themselves as having that or have been identified as having that have all had completely different lives and experiences, different things that have gone on, whether it's traumas, abuses. So we can't say all erotophobia stems from sexual abuse. Nope, not all of it does. There's many different possible things that would create that. So I'll name a few. First, so you have kind of an underlying background idea of where this might actually stem from. And so sexual abuse definitely is top of the list. That's one thing I would think that would be, if you've been sexually abused in your life, if your body's been sexually abused or has been raped, the chances of you not desiring to have sex would be probably higher than people who have not been sexually abused or raped. You probably have a much higher chance of thinking, I do not, and I am afraid of sex, with a lot of validity. And again, those traumas can be changed in the body. They're not something you have to hold on to. You can change it, and like I was mentioning before, like cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure therapy, working with a therapist to talk about it sometimes can help, but sometimes, talking about it forever can just make your body feel it again and again. There's things like linguistics programming, which is short form for that is NLP. There are things just like even meditation in general can really assist. Getting your body moving can help a lot, as well as just allowing yourself to not be the victim and choose something different. I know it sounds powerfully too simple, but honestly, take it from me, it's possible to get yourself out of a place of wow, interesting, thank you, voice, to get yourself out of different energies that you would be refusing receiving, and getting yourself into receiving anything like joy and pleasure in your body. So yeah, sexual abuse, pretty top, great justification for not desiring to have, or top justification for having a full-blown phobia of sexual intimacy. So there can also be other traumas. People who have been through major traumas in general have a higher risk of developing any kind of phobia, really. So, for example, like if a trauma is physical, you probably, in terms of like a physical trauma, it could be somebody that has touched your body, maybe stroked your genitals or touched your breasts or something in your life, or rubbed their genitals on you. And if the trauma is physical in that way, you might be more likely related to develop like a touch-related erotophobia. Some of the other ones that are more like psychological or emotional abuse might lead you to have more of an intimacy or vulnerability-related fear. So when you look at people that you're with or have been with in your past, and you might notice some of these things, they might not have been as extreme as phobia, but there are definitely fears that can sometimes run us. And even though we know truly that fears are not even real, they're just these boogeymen that we've put in our closets to scare us, we can just go boo to the boogeyman and tell them to take a hike, Jack. And really truly fears, your body has a response to fear to tell you something. So there's that. That's more of a signal for survival. And it might not be so much what we would call fear, as it is like a survival mechanism or survival signal in the body that's like, be alert, be alert, be alert. And you're like, okay, I can be alert. It's when we're alert for everything that it gets really confusing, and we actually lose awareness because we start to just think everything is the same. All penises are made equal. No, they're not. Not all penises are the penises that go around violating bodies either. Not all vaginas are vaginas around violating bodies either. So to have a fear that's specific to something like that, you kind of got to go, okay, is this really is this penis a violating penis? No? Oh, that one's not a violating penis either. It'll help you decipher and ask a million questions, because those questions will give you information. Take a deep breath. breathe in, breathe out, and just check, is this real? There's actually really great work by a woman named Byron Katie, and she had a book called Loving What Is. She has 4 questions that she asks related to pretty much everything. And one of the questions is this real? And it is such a great question because pretty much everything after that, you can either check, is it real? No, it's not. Whoa, what am I stressing over then if it's not real? So it's a great question, and I love it. So there's also different things like personal, cultural, and religious morals and mores that could lead to a phobia as well. If you've, for example, here's an example that was going around. I even heard this when I was a kid, where boys would be told that if they masturbate, they're going to grow hair on their hands, and then everybody will know that they've masturbated. Well, a lot of kids I knew were both Greek and Portuguese, and they were hairy kids generally to begin with. So here's this rumor flying. I had girlfriends with hairy hands. I had guy friends with hairy hands. And because that rumor was flying, so many kids would get picked on for being masturbators, even though whether they were or not. But what does that plant in a kid's brain to make them feel so shameful about their own body? It's messed up. It's messed up. So those cultural and religious morals and mores and stories, I would say, can be highly influential, and they can create havoc, actually. So, what else can I say about that? So religion, culture. So on the cultural front, too, I don't know, like so many cultures in the world can be pretty ethnocentric, where everything revolves around their ethnicity. And if you go outside of that, there's a problem. So even if you're dating outside of culture, well, that's wrong. So you have all this stuff planted in your brain. Even now, in 2018, we have these things that can be planted in our brains as thoughts that we start to think are real and true. And they just exactly create havoc and mess with us. So many people experience difficulty when they're trying to balance like their past and their current beliefs, especially when they're going through change. What did I used to believe in? What do I believe in now? Everything that I was ever taught was garbage. Maybe it was all lies. And so start to ask yourself, what's true for me? What is true for me? In terms of cultural, personal, and religious mores, I think one of your great questions you can ask is, what is true for me? Not what's true for my family, my parents, my culture, my religion. What's true for me? And is masturbation going to lead to my hands getting hairy? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. If it is, and you still are choosing it, cool, maybe you'd like hairy hands. Congratulations, that works for you. So there's also things like performance anxiety that can get in the way of physical concerns. Like performance anxiety is pretty big, and I think I actually did a whole performance anxiety. I'm pretty sure I did. And it can really, oh boy, there is so competition out there right now, unspoken, a lot of it, where people are comparing themselves constantly. And I think social media doesn't help very much on that front. But the comparisons, when you're comparing yourself to somebody else, whether you're comparing your body parts, your body size of your body parts, all of those things, or you're watching things like pornography where the guy is staged. Remember, the guy is staged. Even when they're trying to do like homemade porn, for the most part, I bet you they're editing too. They're just trying to make it look like it wasn't edited, and they're just going for an hour. And, then there's another guy watching it, judging the crap out of himself, not being like Joe Blow on the porn, who's like going at it like a pro for an hour. And mind you, yes, men can go at it for an hour, but you don't have to judge yourself for it. And you don't have to judge yourself for lasting long either, which that's occurred, funnily enough. But you don't have to judge yourself for that either. So what if you can just enjoy your body and not judge its performance? Anyway, I have a few more I want to bring up with you guys, but we're actually going to head off to our third and last commercial break for the evening. I want to remind you that you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network and iHeartRadio, yay! And we're going to head off to commercial break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What if you really do change molecules by your interaction with them? What if the change you've been looking for is right before your eyes? What if the uncomfortableness that comes with difference could be fun? What if the closed-minded people of the world no longer determined our world? What if gratitude trumps judgment every time? What if your kindness healed the world? What if the earth is asking for your help? And what if you had the resources to give it? This is your invitation to step into something that Einstein, Marie Curie, Picasso, Da Vinci, Shakespeare, Aristotle all knew to be true. Hi, my name is Dane here. 13 years ago, I started to truly ask questions. Actually, I started to be the question, and everything changed for me. What if there are no dumb questions, or any question too large? What if you being you are the gift and the change this world requires? Is now the time? For more questions to create a change in your world, sign up for a free video series at beingyouclass.com. My gift to you, beingyouclass.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. And we are talking about erotophobia today, the fear of sexual intimacy. So there's a few other possible causes that I wanted to bring up, and one of them is also there can be physical concerns for bodies. So some women have something called vulvodynia, which is basically like pain of penetration, like their vulva hurts when having sex, and that's something that sometimes can be dealt with medically, so that's something to look into if you do have vulvodynia. And some women have a fear that will hurt. They've never had it before, but they might know somebody that's had vulvodynia, so they've heard it can hurt, or their mothers told them it hurt, or they heard rumors that it'll hurt. And then sometimes for men, it actually does hurt because they actually have Peyronie's disease, where their penis is on an angle and having an erection can be really, really painful. So some of those physical concerns can be totally legit, and it's possible to, a lot of those are quite probably things that can be treated medically. I mean, some of them could be extreme, right, where physical concerns could be like cancer, penile cancer, and maybe there's maybe no penis or just like a nub of a penis left, or maybe the woman's had, vulvar cancer or vaginal cancer or labia cancer, and maybe there's like distortion going on in the body that's like a physical anomaly that makes it really painful, which can, make it pretty uncomfortable and pretty fearful to even explain that to a partner or to face it yourself. So in those situations, there's usually support groups for people who have gone through cancers and different things like that. So looking into support groups can be really helpful for that, and talking to your doctor to get you hooked up with that too would be a really good idea. So sometimes the fear is really quite current because your body is having a physical thing going on with it that would go, you can't actually have sex right now. Sometimes germophobia plays a huge role because there are also times with physical concerns, things like diseases, like fear of getting diseases is really big with germophobes, and that can be really related to fear of sex as well, or fear of intimacy, not even wanting to touch that because you could get a disease, right? So please, people, like, if you really would like to change it, please seek, like, professional assistance on that level. And if you don't like professional assistance, there's so many great coaches in the world. There's so many great different resources like NLP, Access Consciousness. There's and if you just really like my voice and you want to talk to me, you can find me too. I can see what I can assist with you. On some levels, I can be highly effective, so I would let you know if I can work within your realm of what's going on with you. So you can contact me if you want to find out about that, because I do many things other than talk to people on this radio show. So you can check out my website, too, at milicajelenic.com. That's MILICAJELENIC. Some other things I was thinking about as possible causes, and these may be stretching it, but I still find some validity in this because we bring energies from all lifetimes with us now, including future lifetimes, including that all lifetimes, if we look at real time, is not real time as in a linear time. It's spherical and everything's existing at the same time. So you might be dealing with something from another lifetime in another body, and it's just present in your body right now. So that's my other thought on erotophobia. Perhaps it's a past life experience that brought this up. My number one question for erotophobia is to really, and I know I waited till the last 3 minutes to mention this, but my number one question is it yours? How aware are we and how aware are our bodies? And ask your body, truth body, do you actually have a phobia, or is that somebody else? Like, to just get this out of the blue, but you happen to be hanging out with somebody who has maybe a fear of intimacy, a fear of showing their body in public. Is that actually yours? Truth, is it yours? Truth, is it yours? Truth, is it yours? I betcha. Oh, I bet you're super freaking aware. And I just wonder how much of it isn't yours. So if it's not yours, remember, you don't have to own it. It's just like a dirty pair of underwear, and unless you're into the fetish of dirty underwear, just throw it out. Give it away. Give it back to the person who left the dirty underwear there with, and return it to the sender. And you can add consciousness to it if you like or not, but just keep up. It's not yours. So it could be other things too. If it's not yours, it could be somebody else's or something else's, and you can always return it. Don't have to keep it. It's not fun to keep. So I think I mentioned a few times earlier several different ways of treatments, and one of them is exposure therapy, which is so the thing that you're afraid of, you expose yourself to it. You are in its presence, right? So if you're afraid of cats, if you have a cat phobia, there's actually something like a chicken phobia even. So if you have like a fear of cats, then exposure would be being in the presence of it. And like my friend who has arachnophobia, she actually uses a toy spider to help herself get exposure therapy, to be around it, to get acclimatized to it, to change her breathing patterns and to change her thought patterns around these things. And that has been found to be effective. I want to thank you guys so much for listening tonight. So excited for this to be on iHeartRadio. And I am so excited to find out what I'm going to be talking about next week. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out real soon and let you guys know in the next few days what's going on. So stay tuned in and turned on, especially your bodies, until we meet again next week on The Pleasure Zone. Have a great week.
Thank you for choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone. Milica Jelenic will return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.